and fans' questions, and I'm here to do the same tonight for the next 30 minutes. So thanks for the members who have already sent in some questions, and if anyone else has got any they want to throw at me, I'm here for the next half an hour, so just put them up and I'll get through them. So first question is from Eric Apkar. What are you doing now to keep yourself fit and in shape? Well, we've been off training now for about 2 or 3 weeks, and it feels like forever, but we've got a program from our strength and conditioning coach, Chris Pappas, to do a bit of isolated training in terms of running, some gym work that you can do at home, with light weights or, body weight stuff, whatever you sort of got available. So that's basically all we've sort of been allowed to do at the moment. I've been pretty busy with the kids as well, so I try to take them out and go for a bike ride or get them out of the house for some exercise every day as well, just to break up being indoors all day and being at home. So that's sort of been keeping me pretty busy as well. Next question from Melissa Muscat. There are many students balancing school and sport life who would love to make it to the top level of sport like yourself, but it's obviously very competitive. What sacrifices did you have to make it to the top, or what's the best advice you can give? Yeah, it's a good question. I think, whether you're a footballer or you want to go into business, you want to be a lawyer, doctor, whatever it is, I think sacrifice is something that, is going to be an integral part of being successful and making it towards your goal. I think, as footballers, we sacrifice a lot ever since, I was 16, 17. Sacrifice has been a huge part of my life and my family's life. Every weekend we're playing games, we're training, we're interstate. When everyone else is off work, we're in at training. We don't get public holidays. I've missed weddings and from family members and whatnot, but all of that's completely worth it. I wouldn't swap it for the world, and I'm sure if you speak to any other boys, I'm sure they'd agree. In terms of what's the best advice you can give, I think obviously hard work is, a given. I think it's, very important. Obviously, you work harder than the guy next to you, and if you do that, eventually you'll get the rewards. And never give up. I think every professional footballer's got a story about when they were told they weren't good enough or they weren't going to make it, and the difference between them and the ones that maybe didn't go on to make it is that they ignored that and kept pressing on and tried their best and eventually didn't take no for an answer and got there. And so never give up's obviously another really important factor. Right, next question from Chrysos Mavro. Do you have any advice for those who are captains for their team? How can they lead by example and use their role properly? I'm pretty lucky in this team that we've got a really great bunch of guys. So it's really easy for me to captain these guys and lead them. It's it's an absolute pleasure. We've got a lot of guys in this team who have a lot of experience and played both at international level and overseas at a high level, and it makes it really easy to, I guess, lead them. So my main sort of role is to make sure that all the boys are happy with everything that's going on at the club and I suppose in their lives, to make sure that I guess they can perform to the best of their ability at training and on the weekend. And I suppose in games, as a defender, I guess it's important for me to communicate a lot and talk to the guys in front of me and give as much information as possible to everyone around me and give us the best chance of succeeding. Next question from Damien Goodwin. You were there at the start of the A-League. How have you seen it evolve from 2005 to now? I think it's changed a lot for the better. Just for starters on the pitch, I think the quality on the pitch has increased year to year from the start of the A-League to where we are now. I think clubs are getting the foreign players right a lot more than they used to in the early days of the A-League. Back in the early days, you might get, obviously you got your 4 or 5 foreign spots. Clubs might get 1 or 2 foreigners that are fantastic, and then a couple of others might not have been as successful, but now you're finding that clubs are doing fantastic sort of due diligence and scouting, and a lot of the time, most of the foreigners that come over here are really adding to our game and making the league a lot stronger. I think off the park as well, it's grown a lot as well in terms of, I guess, clubs' infrastructure and the amount of back staff and guys behind the scenes that are available at clubs for players in terms of physios, doctors. Um, I guess a lot better in terms of they're all having to have their pro licenses now, or their A licenses and getting their pro licenses, which obviously increases the standard of coaching and therefore increases, I guess, the level of play and the level of tactics, which is fantastic. So I think we've still got a long way to go, no doubt. But I think from where we started in 2005 to now, we're definitely heading in the right direction. From next question from Robbie Wood, how did you find the step up from the A-League to the K-League? Yeah, I get asked this question a bit, and I think culturally it was really different for me. Obviously, being in the A-League and being from Australia, living in your home country in your comfort zone, and then all of a sudden going to another country where English isn't that widely spoken, and the culture is very different, was probably the biggest shock to me. On the field, I think the difference sometimes was that the bigger K-League clubs could afford to get high quality foreigners and pay a lot of money for them, in which a lot of the times clubs would rely on them to change the game, and the bigger teams in the K-League would then buy all the really good Korean players. So that's where the difference used to be within the league table. But I don't think there's that big a gap at all between the A-League and the K-League at all. If anything, I think the A-League's a little bit ahead of them tactically and how they approach games in a tactical sense. I think the K-League, when I was there, used to be a little bit more end-to-end, a little bit more frantic. But, they're both great leagues, and I really enjoyed my time in Korea. I had a great time there and had a lot of success. So, I think the leagues are pretty similar. Next question from Kevin Young. Did you ever have a chance to play in Europe? Would you have liked to? Not really. I had, in terms of having a chance. I went back in the old NSL days when I played for Northern Spirit. They had an affiliation with Rangers, and I went over to Rangers when I was young. I think 17. Had a bit of a trial over there and came back more for just an experience sort of thing. And then I ended up going back over to at a separate time to Wigan to trial there, just when they moved up to the Premier League, I think it was. I didn't do that well at Wigan and ended up, while I was over there, going down to Derby and training there for a couple of weeks, or maybe 3 weeks to a month, and actually did all right there and had a chance to stay on, but work visas and the fact that I didn't have a European passport worked against me, and it all sort of fizzled out a little bit. But look, I would have loved to have a chance to play over there. It's watching European football growing up as a kid, you always dreamed of playing for a team over there, and that would have been fantastic, but wasn't to be. Next question from Donny. What does it feel like to represent your country? Would you consider playing at the World Cup to be your career highlight? Yeah, for sure. I think for me, getting to play at a World Cup was something that you dream of as a little kid, and as I got older and I guess realised how difficult it would sort of be to reach that goal, I never really thought it would happen, and then to actually get to play in one and I guess play 3 games, and especially in Brazil as well, which is the home of football, and how passionate their sort of fans are, made the atmospheres at the games pretty special. And yeah, for me that was 100% my career highlight. And to represent your country is such a special feeling. It's something that you always, as a professional in any sport, the highest point you can get to is representing your country, and that feeling when you get to pull on that jersey is pretty special. And all the times you get to do it, it's a special night and a career highlight for sure. From Andrew Harvey, what convinced you to sign with Sydney FC? Well, I came back from Korea. Their season finishes in December, so I came back from Korea in December, and things were a bit up in the air as to whether I was going to stay in Asia or come back to the A-League, and I ended up going down to Melbourne City short term for the rest of the A-League season, and then the chance to sign for Sydney came up, and I'd worked under Graham Arnold before and Andrew Clark and a lot of the staff here, and I knew quite a few of the Sydney boys who were in the squad, and being from Sydney, and after sort of being away for 5 years, it ticked all the boxes, I guess, professionally, but also personally. My wife was pregnant at the time as well with our second child, so just to be able to come home and be close to family and friends and play for your hometown club, it was really a no-brainer and something that I'd always hoped would happen when I came back to Australia. So I'm really happy I made the decision, and am here still 4 or 5 years later, which is fantastic. From Lee Henderson, do you see any similarities between this Sydney FC side and the record breakers of 16-17? Yeah, for sure. I think over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, every squad we've had in the A-League has been fantastic. This year, we're on track to get close to that record that we set 16-17 with one less game. So hopefully we can restart the season and I guess push towards that record with 6 games to go. But yeah, I think the similarities are there for sure. I mean, it's another great group of boys. The culture is fantastic, and all the boys get on really well, off the pitch, which I think makes for a stronger unit on the pitch. And I think it's definitely quite similar. And as I said, let's hope we can get back on the pitch and try to break that record that we set a couple of years ago. Next question from John McMath. Who are the biggest clowns and characters in the squad? We've got a few. Ryan McGowan would definitely be one. He loves to muck around, and whether it's with the staff or the players, he's always, trying to get a laugh, and he's always, got a bit of good banter, which is great. Harry van der Sag, he's, everyone's probably always laughing at him instead of with him, but he's good value around the change room with some of the stuff he comes out with. We've got a lot of guys who enjoy a bit of banter, and I think that sort of builds the team culture and the way that the boys get on off the pitch. And it's important to have that camaraderie around the change room, because, as I said, it helps us become closer together and become a stronger unit. Next question from Adam Gwynn. Do you see yourself retiring in Sydney? What's your golf course of choice? Are you a member anywhere? Yeah, definitely see myself retiring in Sydney. I've still got another year after this current season to go on my contract, so we'll see what happens after that. When you get to my age now, it's just sort of more a year-by-year thing, and making sure that you can still perform at the level required to be a Sydney FC player. So hopefully I can play for a few more years yet, but just a year-by-year sort of thing at the moment. My golf course of choice, I don't play too much. My old man's a member up at Chatswood, so when I do get a game in, I go up there a bit, or I play at North Ryde, which is pretty close to where I live. And no, I'm not a member anywhere, but once I hang up the boots and I guess retire, it might give me a bit more time to play a bit more golf. Next question from this one. Namina Nick Brankovic, best player to play with and best player you played against. Oh, it's on the spot. Okay. Best player to play against would probably be, I reckon, Iniesta or Fabregas. I think that Spain team that we played in the World Cup were pretty special. They, we played the third game. We both had nothing to play for in terms of getting through to the next stage, but we couldn't get near them. They just, the way Iniesta and Fabregas kept the ball, the way they got out of tight spaces was something pretty special. And although you're not really enjoying it at the time because you're not getting much of a touch. It's pretty impressive to sit back and watch as a neutral. Best player to play with, that's a tough one. Bresciano, I thought was fantastic when I was in the national team set up. Same sort of reason as Iniesta and Fabregas. He rarely lost the ball. Great at getting out of tight spaces. You could give him the ball with um, defenders around him, and he'd somehow wiggle out. And I guess domestically, probably Ninko. I think he's the same sort of reason. I play on the left side with him, and whenever I'm getting closed down or in trouble, I just give him the ball, and if he can have 2 or 3 players around him, he somehow wiggles out of it and creates something. So it's a pleasure to play with him every week. Next question from Michelle Baisley. When are you back? Well, we don't really know. It's we're hoping soon in terms of when we're going to be back training, back on the pitch. But it's really not up to us as players. We've got to be guided by what I guess the government say first and foremost, and then what FFA decide. I guess, or when they decide it's suitable for us to be and safe to be back playing and training together, I guess. And first and foremost, they're going to have to give us a date that we can start training and give all the teams, I guess, a chance to get back fit and ready to play matches, which will probably take, I'm guessing 2, 3, 4 weeks. And then I guess that we'll be right to start the season again. But when that happens, who knows? Hopefully as soon as possible, because we're all getting sick of, doing nothing at home. Next question from Ryan Frank. Who has been your best centre-back partner in your career and for Sydney FC? It's a tough one as well. Best centre-back partner in my career. I enjoyed playing with Patrick Svansvik up at the Mariners. He was a great player, great left peg. Used to have a fantastic diag on him. Yeah. When he came to the club, he had a lot of experience, so I learned a lot off him. So it was nice to play with him. I also played with Tony Vidmar at the Mariners as well, which I was, I think, 22, 23 at the time, and to have someone like him come in, obviously an international with a lot of experience in Europe and for Australia, it was fantastic to have someone like him to play next to as well. So I learned a lot off him. In terms of Sydney FC, we've had heaps. It's a pleasure to play with all of them. Geordie a couple of years ago, Ryan McGowan this year, Seba, Benny Warland, Aaron Calver, all of them have been fantastic. So it's hard to pick one there. Next question from Sheen Butterboon Izzy, is it? What's different between A-League and K-League in terms of training? I think the K-League in terms of training was pretty difficult. We trained a lot. We didn't have many days off. There wasn't the same sort of science behind the training that there is in Australia. I think we're very lucky here in Australia that the level of sports science and strength and conditioning that we have here, in my experience in Korea, we didn't have that sort of level in terms of monitoring loads and all that sort of scientific stuff that helps you, I guess, be ready for the game on the weekend. So the training was pretty long sessions, a lot of double sessions, morning and afternoon, and as I said, not too many days off, because that was also because we played a lot more games than we did here in the A-League as well. We played close to 40 games in the season, plus the Cup, plus the Asian Champions League, which we used to be in each year. So that was also another reason why I guess there wasn't too many free days. Ben Christian, how are you keeping engaged as a team during isolation? Are you able to train together at all, in pairs perhaps? Not really, no. We've been told that we have to train in isolation and have to do everything by ourselves at the moment. Hopefully that can change soon. But as I said before, we've got to be swayed by what the government and the FFA say. And at the moment, they're saying we've all got to do all our training in isolation. And in terms of keeping engaged, we've got a group chat on WhatsApp that, we're all, keeping in touch with each other and, touching base every day. So all the boys are well, and as I said before, looking forward to getting back out to training and hopefully being on the pitch as soon as possible.
Next question, Kevin Ning, I guess. I don't know how to say that last name, but how would you compare the culture, John Book, Hyundai Motors and Sydney FC, given their top club in the KLeague and being at the top club in the A-League? How well can you speak Korean, and did you enjoy the Jeonju Bibimbap?
To the Bibimbap, yes, big fan. I've been trying to find a good place here for a couple of years. I found a place that's not too far from my house at the moment, and my wife and I still get it pretty regularly. We used to go to lots of restaurants in Jeonju because they're famous for their bibimbap there, which was very, very good. How well can I speak Korean? Very, very ordinary. I didn't learn as much as I should have when I was there. I got to the stage where I could probably hold a really small conversation and get by, but apart from that, I was pretty awful. My little boy, he was 6 weeks when we went there, and we ended up putting him in a all Korean kindy over there, and he got to the stage where he could understand a lot of it. He couldn't speak it, but his teachers and all his friends at kindy were only speaking Korean as there was no English spoken, and he ended up being able to understand quite a bit of it, but he's forgotten it now as well. And in terms of culture, you can't compare it because, as I said before, you've got foreigners coming in who don't necessarily speak the language. The Korean boys don't necessarily speak great English, so it's hard to form that really close bond with everyone. Although there's quite a few guys over there who I guess we all sort of spoke to regularly, and I still speak to a couple of the guys. The culture within the club, I suppose you can't compare to what we've got here in Sydney.
Adam LaFondre, you're my hero. Thanks, buddy. How's things, mate? Next question. Ashley Williams. Do you reckon it will restart
to the league? I guess he's talking about. I hope so, yeah, and I think it will. It's just a matter of being patient. As I said, we've got no idea. I'd love to tell you guys, we'll give you guys a date of when we're going to be back on the pitch, but I just can't do that at the moment. And we as players are in limbo. We're just sort of standing by and waiting to see what happens. But yeah, I do think it'll restart. I think we've got plenty of time before the next season's due to start. So whether it's still 3 or 4 months away, we've still got time to fit in 6 games plus a final series before we start the next season. So yeah, we all think, and we're all planning as if the season's going to start again.
Callum Hussein, why do you think we haven't won a Sydney derby this season?
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. I can't really explain it. I think the first game was one of probably our best performance of the season, but without putting the ball in the net. We basically did everything we could and just couldn't quite get there. That first game. The second game I thought was similar. We controlled a lot of the possession and probably didn't do enough in terms of breaking them down in our final third. And they ended up getting a late goal again, and then obviously the last derby, played behind closed doors, which was a pretty weird experience. Copped that horrendous late goal, the deflection, and gave Redders no chance, which was pretty unlucky. So for some reason, we've only lost 2 games all year, and unfortunately they've been both to the Wanderers. But we've had a pretty good run over them in the last few years, and I'm sure that'll continue again next year, or if we can meet them in the finals in this year, when we get back and finish this year off.
Next question. Hang on, we're just scrolling here. I think I saw one about, Ashley Williams, best goalie you have had in your team in your career.
It's a tough one. Matt Ryan, I think, was pretty special. Obviously, I had him at the Mariners when he first broke into the team as a youngster, and even then you could sort of tell that he had something about him that was pretty special. His work ethic and his I guess his criticism on himself to be better was something that you don't always see, and just his ability to, as well, for the modern goalkeeper, to be able to play with his feet. He was pretty much like an outfield player in terms of having a sweeper behind you because he was so confident with both feet. And obviously he's gone on to do fantastic. At Sydney FC, Vuka and Redders stand out for sure. Both of them fantastic goalkeepers. Both of them gone on to represent their country now, which is fully deserved. And having keepers like that behind you as a back four, really gives you a lot of confidence. And they're both all three I mentioned are fantastic.
Liam Burns, favourite A-League ground to play at?
Apart from, I guess, Allianz or Cogra or Leichhardt, I guess our home grounds, I enjoy playing at Hindmarsh in Adelaide. I think it's the perfect sort of size stadium that the A-League needs. The stands are really steep, means that the atmosphere is really close to the pitch, and as players you sort of really enjoy that experience of having the crowd right on top of you and the atmosphere really, really loud, which is great.
Joe Santangelo, would you please provide your best tip for a keen under 10 player who loves the game?
I guess there's a few. Always work on both feet. I think it's an important one. I think that can sometimes be neglected a little bit in terms of if you're a right footer, you get, I guess you work on your strong foot a little bit more than your weak foot. So, I think going forward and as you get older, it can be a blessing to be able to play with both feet because it doesn't matter what side of the pitch you can play on. So I think that's a really important one. And as I said, just train hard, mate. Never give up and train hard. And if you're training with a club on, a couple of times a week, try to get out in the backyard another 2 times and do a bit of stuff by yourself to improve your game.
Craig Wastel, how many more years do you think you'll keep playing? I think you'll be a massive loss for Sydney when you do retire. Thank you. As I said before, I think it's a bit of a year-by-year thing at the moment. I've got another year on my contract after this current season, so I guess once we get into next season, whenever that starts, we'll reassess then and see how the body's feeling. But I guess it's just, for me, it's about making sure I'm fit enough and playing well enough to be able to perform at the level required for a Sydney FC player. Obviously at Sydney here we have high standards, and every season we expect to be very successful. So that attracts the best players in the league, and I've got to make sure, I guess, that I'm up to that. So that's a sort of a year-by-year thing, but I'd love to keep playing as long as possible. I'm still really enjoying the game. My body's good in terms of injuries, so hopefully I can play for a few more years yet. All right, guys, I think that's about half an hour now. So if there's any other questions that I didn't get to, I apologise for that. But as I said when I first jumped on, I hope everyone had a good Easter and everyone's staying safe and healthy and isolated. And I hope that, as I said throughout the questionnaires, that we can get back out training and on the pitch soon and see you all at a game, very soon. So thanks again, and speak to you all soon. Cheers.